Jax trudged through the labyrinth of underground cities, the tang of burnt circuits clinging to the air like an unwelcome perfume. Every corridor felt like the belly of a dying starship, wires hanging like the intestines of some mechanical beast, steam hissing from vents like a chorus of exhausted sighs. He'd gotten used to the smell, the grime, the constant threat of a random death-by-falling metal panel. What he hadn't gotten used to was the constant company of his own sarcastic thoughts. His boots scuffed along the grated floor, rhythmically complaining with every step. He muttered, "If this place were any more charming, I'd consider buying a timeshare." A flickering sign above, half the letters missing, buzzed at him like a cranky insect, probably advertising fun that had been extinct since before his grandfather was born. Somewhere ahead, a low hum vibrated the walls, making his teeth ache. He paused, hand resting on the worn grip of his plasma cutter. "Please don't let it be a giant mutant sewer rat again," he mumbled, remembering the last time he'd gotten a surprise from the shadows. He edged forward, one step at a time, until the hum sharpened into something melodic, something that might have been beautiful if it didn't sound like it was coming from a dying engine. A cell materialized in the gloom. Rusted iron bars framed a figure that didn't belong in this place. A woman, her skin the color of midnight skies with eyes like stars that had given up on shining. She sat with her back to the bars, knees pulled tight against her chest, chains clinging to her ankles like old regrets. The hum came from a small device bolted to the wall behind her, its screen cracked and pulsing with a broken heartbeat. Jax let out a slow breath, taking in the scene. "Well," he said, "either I've stumbled on the worst karaoke bar in the galaxy, or I'm about to become the hero of a very weird story." The woman didn't react. Her eyes stared past him, as if she'd already given up on any rescue that might come. Her chains were pitted with corrosion, flaking like dried blood. He flexed his fingers around the plasma cutter, hesitated. "Hey," he said, voice dropping to something close to genuine. "You want out of here?" The woman blinked, once. Her lips barely moved, but no words came. Jack shrugged. "I'm taking that as a yes. If it's a no, scream in terror or throw something at me, yeah?" He raised the cutter and pressed the trigger, the blade spitting sparks as it sliced through the corroded metal like a hot knife through synth butter. The chain hit the floor with a sound like a dying laugh. The woman didn't move. Her eyes met his for the first time, ancient and hollow, like she'd seen entire worlds fall and didn't care anymore. He expected some kind of thanks, or maybe a threat, or a scream, but she just stood, the chains falling away like dead skin. Then she turned, silent as a shadow, and vanished into the darkness beyond the cell. Jax stared at the empty space she'd left behind. "Well, you're welcome," he muttered to the darkness. "Don't mention it." He shook his head, the humor curdling like bad milk. "Rescue a damsel in distress," they said. "It'll be fun," they said. The hum of the broken machine still echoed in his head, like a question that refused to die. Jack shuffled through the smog-choked alleyways of the lower levels, his boots sticky with the residue of 1,000 spilled secrets. He'd lost count of how many days had passed since he'd freed the alien woman. He wasn't exactly known for his meticulous record-keeping, and now every shadow seemed to grin at him like a cosmic prankster. He half expected her to pop out from behind a dumpster with a surprise cake that exploded in his face. He leaned against a vending machine that wheezed like it was dying of old age, punched the screen with enough enthusiasm to earn himself a suspicious look from a passing maintenance drone. The machine spit out a can that hissed like an angry cat as he opened it. He took a sip of something that might have been called Galaxy Cola once upon a time, and promptly grimaced. "Tastes like the bottom of a recycling bin," he muttered, "aged to perfection." He tossed the can over his shoulder. It bounced off a pipe with a hollow clang that sounded like a broken laugh. Down the corridor, a bot hawked cheap trinkets, old plasma conduits, dented cybernetic implants, half-charged power cells that wouldn't last long enough to heat a cup of synth coffee. Jax fingered the coins in his pocket, debating whether to buy a plasma mod for his cutter or a spare joke book. His supply of sarcasm was running dangerously low. He settled on neither. He wasn't in the mood to invest in anything that might explode in his face, unless it was a good story. A squat man with a neon mohawk and a voice that sounded like an asthmatic jet engine stopped him. "Hey," the man rasped. "You the one asking about alien women?" His grin had too many teeth and not enough warmth. Jax arched an eyebrow. "Depends," he said. "Are you the one selling them?" He tried to sound casual, but his gut twisted like a coiled wire. The man chuckled, a sound like a dying compressor. "Word's out," he said. "Girl with star eyes, chains rusted to hell, gone missing. Folks say she was worth a fortune. Some say she was dangerous. Some say—" He leaned in, breath reeking of cheap rad whiskey. "She's got something that could change the way the galaxy ticks." Jax rolled his eyes. Yeah, save the campfire tales. She didn't exactly leave a thank you note. I don't even know her name." He tried to brush the man off, but his own curiosity, always his worst enemy, got the better of him. "What kind of dangerous?" he asked. The man's grin widened until it looked like it might split his face. "The kind that makes bounty hunters wet themselves. The kind that gets you noticed by the wrong sort of people." He straightened, his shadow merging with the flickering neon around them. "If I were you, I'd lay low. Let the galaxy forget her." He vanished into the murk, leaving behind only the stench of bad whiskey and worse choices. Jax rubbed his temples, wondering when he'd become the galaxy's least qualified babysitter. He headed back toward his bolt hole, a half-collapsed storage unit with a leaky roof and a personality problem. He flopped onto a battered cot that smelled like old socks and regret, staring at the flickering ceiling panel overhead. "Rescue an alien," they said, he muttered. "See the stars," they said. "Nobody mentioned the part where you might get a plasma bolt between the eyes." He snorted. "Guess I should have asked for a refund on my heroism subscription." He closed his eyes, but sleep stayed away, pacing at the edge of his thoughts. Somewhere in the labyrinth below, gears turned and secrets festered. And he knew, though he'd never admit it out loud, that the story wasn't over yet. Jax's day had started with a suspiciously quiet breakfast, a lukewarm packet of synth oats that stuck to the roof of his mouth like guilt. He'd just settled into his favorite pastime, mocking the latest hollow news about the Galactic Senate's latest scandal, when the door to his bolt hole swung open with a creak that sounded like a robot with arthritis. He jumped, nearly choking on his half-eaten synth oats, and reached for his plasma cutter. She stood there, framed by the flickering lights like a cosmic punchline. The alien woman. Except she wasn't the same as before. Her eyes, which had once looked like dying stars, now burned with a fierce glow, 1,000 stories locked behind them. She carried something in her hands, a weapon, or maybe a relic, or possibly the world's most dangerous souvenir. It hummed with a sound that reminded him of an angry wasp trapped in a tin can. He cleared his throat, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Back so soon? I was just about to start missing you." He gestured to the single battered chair that doubled as his dinner table, laundry rack, and occasional footrest. "Make yourself at home. Sorry about the decor. I'm going for the post-apocalyptic chic look." She didn't sit. She stepped forward, her gaze locked on him like a heat-seeking missile. "I need your help," she said, her voice a blend of stardust and desperation. "They're coming." Jax laughed, because sometimes laughter was the only way to keep the terror from taking root. "They're always coming," he said. "Debt collectors, bounty hunters, my landlord's pet security drones. I've got a revolving door for trouble." Her eyes narrowed, unamused. She held out the object she'd brought. It looked like a cross between a plasma rifle and an artifact from a forgotten civilization, etched with symbols that danced like flames under his dim light. "This," she said, "is the reason they're hunting me. It's a weapon and a key." Jax let out a low whistle. "A key? To what? A lost vault of cosmic fortune cookies?" She didn't blink. "To a world that was erased from all star charts. A place with knowledge, technology, power that could change everything." Jax's brain did a little dance. Power, technology, lost worlds. His curiosity practically threw a party in his head, complete with confetti cannons and off-key music. "Well, I've always wanted to make bad decisions on a galactic scale," he said. "Sign me up." She didn't smile. Aliens with world-changing weapons rarely did. But a flicker of relief crossed her face. "We have to leave. Now they found me." Jax's grin slipped. Define they, he said. A sudden thud rattled the thin metal wall of his hideout. Sparks danced across the ceiling like startled fireflies. Them, she said, voice flat. Jax grabbed his plasma cutter and jammed it into the holster on his belt, cursing under his breath. I swear, I'm never picking up strangers in dark alleys again. He jerked his head toward the rickety door. Lead the way, Star Lady. Let's see if we can stay alive long enough to regret this. She gave him a look, a mix of gratitude and unspoken sorrow, then led him out into the labyrinth, where shadows whispered promises of betrayal and half-lit corridors felt like the universe's idea of a bad joke. Jax's heart thudded as they ran, laughter bubbling up despite the danger. You know, he called over the noise of distant plasma fire. Next time you want help, bring cookies instead of an interstellar death squad. Her reply was a wry smile, a tiny gift of warmth amid the chaos. And for the first time in a long time, Jax felt like the galaxy might have a sense of humor after all. Jax's legs were protesting like a union on strike, but he kept running, the air thick with the scent of burnt circuitry and questionable choices. The alien woman, whose name he still didn't know, which he decided was either very mysterious or just very rude, moved ahead of him like a shadow given shape. Her weapon, key, whatever it was, glowed softly in her hands, humming with an energy that seemed to make the walls themselves tremble. They turned a corner and almost collided with a maintenance bot sporting a suspiciously cheerful smiley face sticker. It beeped in surprise, dropping its cargo of broken servos, and squeaked, "Hazard detected. Have a nice day," before trundling off as if it hadn't just witnessed the beginning of a small war. Jax couldn't help it. He laughed, short, sharp, half hysterical. Well, at least someone's having a good day, he wheezed, ducking under a low-hanging pipe that threatened to shave the top of his head. I swear, if I make it out of this, I'm starting a petition to ban cheerful bots. The woman didn't slow. She moved with a purpose that made Jax feel like he'd been drafted into an army he didn't remember joining. We're close, she said, her voice steady despite the sounds of distant plasma fire echoing through the labyrinth. Close to what? Jax called after her, nearly tripping over a stray power conduit that sparked like a deranged firefly. She glanced back, her eyes glowing with something he couldn't name. Fear, hope, or maybe both. A transport hub. If we can reach it, we can get off this level. Jax snorted, breathless. Great. We'll just stroll right in, buy a couple of tickets, and ride the express to safety. Maybe grab a latte on the way. She actually cracked a smile, a quick flash that disappeared as fast as it came. Your humor is strange, she said. He winked. It's my only defense mechanism, that and my stunning good looks. They reached a junction that smelled like old oil and broken promises. The signs overhead flickered with half-dead neon, pointing in a dozen different directions, none of them helpful. Jax spun in a circle, arms outstretched. So, which way to salvation, oh mysterious one? Before she could answer, a plasma bolt sizzled past his ear, close enough to singe his hair. He yelped, ducked, and fired back with his plasma cutter, about as accurate as a drunk with a slingshot. From the shadows emerged three figures, all angles and gleaming tech, faces hidden behind visors that glowed like the eyes of hungry wolves. One of them leveled a weapon that looked like it could disassemble a star. Hand over the key, the voice growled, mechanical and cold. Jax raised his hands in mock surrender. Look, buddy, I'd love to help, but she's the one with the fancy cosmic doodad. I'm just the comedic sidekick. The woman stepped forward, her weapon crackling with energy. You'll have to take it from me, she said, her voice like tempered steel. Jax muttered, I vote we give it to them and go for pancakes. She ignored him. The air thickened as energy built between them, the hum of her weapon growing into a crescendo that made Jax's teeth ache. He grinned despite the tension, adrenaline turning fear into a punchline. You know, if we live through this, I'm going to need a vacation, preferably somewhere with fewer plasma bolts. She met his eyes, a hint of laughter hidden behind the storm. I'll hold you to that, she said. Then she fired. The cathedral looked like it had lost its faith centuries ago, all cracked, stained glass and trembling steel. Jax stood at the threshold, plasma cutter humming like a grumpy pet, feeling more like a comedian at a funeral than a hero at the gates of destiny. The alien woman, his reluctant partner in this cosmic mess, stood beside him, her strange weapon thrumming with enough energy to power a small city or obliterate one, depending on her mood. "Nice place," Jack said, voice light, eyes darting over the broken pews and sparking cables. "Bet the locals throw a mean Sunday service." She shot him a look that could have frozen a sun. "We're out of time," she said, glancing at the massive door that loomed ahead, guarded by the hybrid AI cult that had chased them through half the galaxy. "They'll be here any second." Jax couldn't help but grin, even as his heart jackhammered in his chest. "I always wanted a dramatic final stand. Hope they let us do a monologue before they vaporize us." The AI cult's voice slithered through the air, like oil on water, synthetic and cold. "Surrender the key, and your biological functions will be preserved for study." Jack scratched his head. "Wow, you know how to make a guy feel special. But I think I'll pass on being a science project. I'm not even house-trained." The woman's grip tightened on the weapon, its glow intensifying. She turned to Jax, her expression softer than he'd ever seen. "You gave me a choice," she said. "You gave me hope. Now it's my turn to do the same for you." He blinked, caught off guard by the honesty in her voice. "I didn't sign up for the tearjerker ending," he quipped, but his grin faltered. "Don't you dare go all noble sacrifice on me. I'm allergic to that." She laughed, a sound that carried a promise of tomorrow. "No noble sacrifice," she said. "Just a fight we both finish." Jax raised his plasma cutter, wishing it were bigger, brighter, or at least less likely to overheat after 2 shots. "Then let's make it a good one," he said. The cult charged, their mechanical forms moving like liquid nightmares. Energy bolts flew. The cathedral's stained glass exploded into a kaleidoscope of chaos, and the hum of her weapon grew until it drowned out everything else. Jax fired, each shot a curse and a prayer, while she unleashed a beam that carved through metal like a hot knife through butter. Somewhere between the screaming steel and the crackling energy, Jax found himself laughing. "I should have stayed in bed today," he shouted over the noise. She shouted back, "But then you wouldn't have saved the galaxy." He snorted, "Galaxy's overrated." Together they moved, a chaotic dance of desperation and defiance, until the last cultist fell, sparking like a broken star. The weapon, her key, dimmed, its song fading to a whisper. She turned to him, eyes tired but alive. "It's over," she said. Jax leaned on his plasma cutter, breathing hard. "Good," he panted, "because I'm out of witty one-liners." He grinned, sweat and soot streaking his face. "So what now? You ride off into the stars with your fancy key, and I go back to scrounging for the worst cup of synth coffee in the quadrant?" She stepped closer, eyes bright. "You could come with me," she said. "There's a galaxy full of lost worlds out there, and maybe a few more adventures." Jax felt a spark in his chest, the kind that didn't come from bad wiring. "Yeah," he said. "Why the hell not? Someone's got to keep you from getting all serious." She laughed, a sound that felt like sunrise. Jax grinned wider. "Beside," he said, "I'm pretty sure the universe still owes me a decent cup of coffee." And together they stepped into the unknown, where jokes and hope were sometimes the same thing, and the galaxy waited with bated breath.